We tend sometimes to think of people as being some homogeneous group, but homogeneity, as we know, is a myth. We are all very different in terms of our abilities, our interests. The right to culture is about enabling everyone to feel part of cultural life, no matter their ethnicity, the language they speak. The reason that we're speaking here of diversity and the way that digital realities affect different people is because they were born into different realities. When we're speaking of accessibility, in fact, we consider all forms of accessibility. Traditionally, people tend to think only about physical accessibility, but we are looking on how even the form of communication that we go for affects people's accessibility, people's engagement, how comfortable people feel.
If you're isolated, if your world is between the four walls of your home, then you're less exposed to opportunities to learn about these things. And sometimes even the lack of the actual device. They don't have internet at home, if they don't have a working laptop, if they don't have a phone. Women whose lives center inside the household, are they as aware as risks, for example? Are they as aware? Are they as savvy, perhaps? When women are employed outside of the home, even their network is going to be wider than the woman who is active inside the home. So the things they learn, the things they are exposed to technology-wise is going to be far broader. Women whose lives exist within the house, the skills they have picked up from there, it's going to be more limited.
I think we need to advocate more for the need of digital skills, because sometimes when you're at home looking after your close environment, you may not recognize how important these digital skills are. Even accessing services, for example, government services, are very much online nowadays, and if you're not on top of things, you won't be able to access these services. Digital skills are very important for the empowerment of women in life in general, but in particular if you want to join the labour market. Because nowadays you can't really get a job without having any digital skills at all. Whatever you're doing, even the very basic work needs digital skills.
certain age group, they were disadvantaged in the labor market, because when you then applied for a job and you are 45, 50, oh no, she's already not up to that level anymore. But I mean, there are still people who can learn. There are still people who can be trained.
Well, the 45 plus, they were brought up in a different reality. Traditionally, many of them would work until they find a partner, until they get married, have children, and stop working. And that would mean they're away from the workforce. And when they want to enter the labor market, they find it very difficult because nowadays, even when you're at work, the skills, the tools that we're using all the time keep changing, keep being updated. When you're away from the labor market, you're not in touch with what is happening.
I think employers today know that they have, because obviously there is such a shortage of labor. If you approach it as well, now of inclusion, diversity, all this coming into employers' mind to look at it, I think if you approach it in the right way and say, listen, I'm getting somebody maybe of an age 45, 50, and train that person, keep them up to skill, they will be much more loyal. They will be much more appreciative of what they are learning, of you are getting them into it. Might be an initial effort, but then I think the loyalty you get and the empowerment you gave to these people of being part of it, I think will repay you as an employer.
It's never too late to change your career path, therefore want to entice also the older cohorts to take tech. Hence, we are evolving from a youth-centric upskilling to more lifelong inclusion. This aligns with the EU Digital Decade Strategy, which highlights that therefore there's a divide both generational but also gendered. However, both Malta and also at EU-wide, we are putting our efforts in order to minimize that. Working in tech doesn't mean that you're working in one sector. Working in tech means that sometimes you're working with medtech companies, edtech, different kind of firms that are cross-sectoral. I have studied biology and chemistry, so by profession I'm a scientist. However, when I was growing older, then I decided to change and also specialized in management, and nowadays I'm a business development manager. And the sector is in tech. Women are making notable progress when it comes to the digital sector and also ICT. However, disparities still exist when compared to the European Union.
First of all, create awareness of the need. That is the most important, because that's the first step. You have to acknowledge that you need those digital skills. And then we try and promote courses which are available, particularly if they're free. So it is very important that municipalities, local councils try to organize, or education division organizes such courses.
We tend to look at certain career paths in a very binary way. This is more for girls, this is more for boys, something very traditional. Sometimes it's hard to believe that we still function in that way, but that is the reality. People tend to automatically, some people at least, tend to automatically see a particular gender doing a particular role more than the other gender.
violence happens through technology, it is really just an extension of violence that happens in real life. Usually it is the building of trust, and then there is some kind of promise or something is taken. So for example, explicit photos are taken after there is the building of trust. And then there are the threats and the blackmail that follow. The same with scams. You know, there's a building of trust, and then something is taken, something is shared, and then comes the blackmail and the threats and the harassment and so on. So there is this. It always starts with the perpetrator building trust.
There's research to show that women in top positions, particularly women politicians, are more harassed and abused online because it is not what they say or what they do that is questioned, but what is questioned is who they are, because they are women. There again, women need to be empowered, and at that level, in the decision-making levels, they would be empowered to ask for assistance and to seek help in order to redress the situation.
I think the first thing that needs to happen is it needs to be made a priority. It needs to be recognized. If we look at who is more likely to receive violence, threats, and so on online, it's women, and it's the political will, I think, that's missing. For example, governments everywhere should have a fund specifically for women who end up in shelters without devices, because it's a matter of safety. If you go to a domestic violence shelter and you don't have a mobile device, then you cannot keep in touch with your social worker. You cannot call the police if you're out and you're being stalked. It's a matter of safety. And you need to contact your lawyer, you need to contact your domestic violence advisor. And awareness is important because technology now is in our homes, it's in every facet of our lives. So reaching people to let them know, to raise awareness about how technology can be abused is the responsibility of every government. The problem is, I think, that even legislation is reactionary. It comes much later, and usually terrible things have to happen first. We are owed, as women, policymakers who are thinking ahead, who are thinking of where technology is now, where it's going, and how to protect women and other vulnerable groups.